Hey everyone, welcome to the coaching session for Kyalami, this time in wet conditions. We're going to follow the similar format to the dry session where we start by doing a track walk followed by a hot lap. So just to start, two general tips that I want to give. Number one is remember your brake markers in normal dry conditions. You're still going to use it for wet weather driving, but you're just going to back up all your brake markers accordingly. There is really no such thing as a wet brake marker just because in the rain there's a lot more variables involved, so you do kind of have to adjust to your driving conditions as you see fit. And number two is you definitely need to know which curbs you can and cannot take. So it's okay to take a curb when you're just kind of coasting over it. So that would be most of the apex curbs, corners where you're kind of hopping on the curb for a split second and that's it. Those curbs are fine to take. It is not okay to take a curb for when you have to brake or initiate turning, because if you try to do either of those when you're on a curb, you're gonna spin out. Like, those curbs are slippery when wet, so you need to avoid it. So let's start the track walk. Just crossing the start finish line. Just passing turn one, which is this little right-hander kink. And to set ourselves up for turn two, as I was just saying, you want to avoid the red and white curb because this is an area where we're going to be braking. You try to brake with your right side tires on the curb, you're going to spin out. So instead, we're going to stay on the black pavement. Put your right side tires, on the white line as close to the curb as possible without touching it. For your brake marker, remember in the dry we were using the 100 board. In the wet, you'll have to back that up a few car lengths. In this case here, we're braking, let's say like 3 car lengths before. Again, you just gotta play around, adjust to the conditions. But in terms of line, really similar line. Don't venture out too far wide here. You have to cut back to the left to set yourself up for turn 3. Stay to the right over here for turn 5. You want to open up the corner. And definitely stay off the curbs on the right side, or else you'll spin out as you go to turn in. I still took the curb on the inside because this is one of the examples where this is a curb where you're just coasting over it, so the loss of grip doesn't really matter that much. And on exit, I actually took a lot of the curb and the runoff, and that's okay because as you can see, our car is pretty much straight at this point. So it's definitely more important to carry as much speed on exit than it is the minimal loss of grip that you would experience by taking the curb on the exit. So yeah, just in general, through Sector 1, your driving line is more or less the same as you would in the wet, or in the dry, sorry. The only exception being you need to stay off the curbs on entry. On the approach to turn 6, again, we want to avoid the curb on the left because remember, in the dry, we would have initiated a turn-in with our left sides on this curb. So you cannot do that in the wet or else you're going to spin out. Again, we're braking a little bit earlier. Still turning in just a hair before you hit the brakes. But we're definitely braking, a solid few car lengths before. Again, I touched the curb on the inside, and that's okay. And likewise on exit. So for turn 7, again, reference the 50 board and just back up your brake marker just a tad. Use all the runoff. And for turn 8, again, make sure your right side tires are not touching the curb. And we're going to be hitting the brakes just a tad, throwing the car into 8, and lifting before we do the right-hander for turn 9. So again, we had to lift off the gas in order to make turn 9, and obviously in the wet you do have to lift more than you would in the dry. But curb usage, I use both curbs in this section because we're just coasting over it. Watch out for track limits over here. Don't use too much of the runoff. Make sure your right side tires are on the white line or to the right of it. Run up to turn 10, the hairpin. Again, remember your braking reference in the dry, either the marshal post on the left or the start of the red and white curbs on the right, and braking about a few car lengths before that. Again, just play with it until you can brake comfortably without overshooting the corner. Back on the gas really early in the apex to maximize your exit speed. Again, in the wet, instead of feathering, like gradually getting back on the gas, in hairpins such as this, you definitely want to still lean on the TC. So I'm back on the gas. Like if you feel the back end getting swirly, I would suggest turning up the TC instead of trying to feather it manually, because it's in these GT3 cars the TC really works well. So if you need to, turn up the TC. So right now to turn 12. When we were doing the track work in the dry conditions, turn 12 was barely a turn, because you know in the dry we've got more than enough grip. We took turn 12 flat out and stayed to the left. However, there's a big line difference here in the wet, because in the wet obviously you've got reduced grip. You can no longer make this turn flat out. So what you want to do instead is lift going in, and you will want to, you know, track out to the right on exit, and I'll show you here. So we had a lift, back on the gas early, and as you can see, just with the grip levels, it's impossible to keep the car pinned to the left. So instead, we're going to track out all the way to the right. And the reason for doing this is to maximize your speed. You know, if you were to follow the racing line in the dry, you would have had to, you know, lift a lot more or even brake. So that's definitely not ideal. It's better to take it like I did it here, where you're maximizing the speed into and through turn 12 and sacrificing a bit of the entry for turn 13, but it's not too bad, and I'll explain. Because for turn 13, as you can see here, as we start braking, we're definitely out of position, right? We're not to the left. However, that's okay, because the entry to turn 13, it's already kind of curving to the right. So instead, we're just gonna brake in a straight line so that by the time we're at the end of the braking zone, we're back on the left side of the track where we need to be. So yeah, braking in a straight line, and as you can see, we're pretty much back to where we were in the dry. You know, I think here, this is probably not the best example I could have showed. I could have probably been about half a car length more to the left, but you get the point. Again, apex curb, you can take it no problem. And on exit, take the runoff, take the curb. Over here again, when you're initiating turn in, do not touch the curb on the left side. You have to stay on the black pavement. Look towards the sausage curb on the inside, but do not hit it. On exit, take all the runoff and take the grass if you need to. And remember your braking point for the last corner. We were using the marshal post, so you're still going to look towards the marshal post and just back up your braking. Back it up according to the wet conditions. Back on the gas early. Now on exit over here, I would definitely recommend that you stay off of the curb on the right. So for most of the other corners at this track, it's okay to take the runoff on exit because you wanted to maximize your exit speed. However, this final corner, turn 16, is a really tight hairpin, so you're already slowed down like pretty good. So it's more important that you have a good drive off the corner. And so if you put your right side tires onto the red and white curbing on the right side, it's going to hurt your drive off. So it's best to have a slightly tighter line on exit, stay on the pavement to get the best drive.